So when nighttime rolls around and you start to get tired, you know you're gonna have to spend 8 boring hours trying to get to sleep. Then you're gonna have to get up the next day and pretend like you actually got some sleep. You try and drink some coffee, but guess what? It doesn't wake you up. They say coffee's bad for insomniacs anyways, so it's kinda like you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. But I kinda look at it as you're just damned. At this time, you've never needed God's help more in your entire life than you do now. Ironically, you've never been more sure that he doesn't exist. Anyways, here's my sleep medication review, because I've tried them all, so it's time to stop jerking off with chamomile. I have the cure for insomnia. When you think of sleep medication, Ambien's the first drug that comes to mind. Ambien is no doubt the most efficient sleep aid. It's fail-safe for curing insomnia, but it does have the problem just like any other drug. After about 5 days, you grow a tolerance to it. Ambien tolerance raises super quick, but it also decreases super quick. I thought that I'd have some sort of perma-tolerance because of blackout times when I've chugged an entire bottle. I made a chart of the progression of Ambien tolerance for me, and it should be pretty universal to all people. After about 5 days, Ambien stops working, so if you can't get to sleep, you're gonna have to alternate to a different drug. All the best sleep aids all have to work with the GABA receptor, but you can't find anywhere written rather there's a cross-tolerance between them. Benzodiazepines are a completely different chemical that have a similar action in the brain as Ambien. For months I've been alternating between Ambien and benzos, but I've found this not to be super effective because I've suspected a 1-for-1 direct cross-tolerance between the two. So I did a test where I went 3 weeks without eating Ambien, but I worked myself up to a benzo tolerance where I ate 22 temazepam only to get slight effects. The next day after eating 22 temazepam, I ate 3 Ambien, which still to this day, if I go 3 weeks without taking Ambien, 3 Ambien will knock my ass out. But it got almost no effects. That shows a complete cross-tolerance. So benzodiazepines still aren't the cure. At this point, you're still fucked for getting your sleep every day. So the next most powerful sleep aid, which is not a GABA drug, would be diphenhydramine.
Need to sleep? Diphenhydramine.
Speaking of someone who, for the most part, needs drugs to fall to sleep, diphenhydramine actually has potential for making an insomniac go to sleep. Like Ambien, the user will experience hilarious confusion at high amounts, but unlike Ambien, it's not fun.
Looking for an over-the-counter recreational drug? Diphenhydramine.
Just for the shit of it, I've taken Earwood's 400 milligrams, and it does work as a funny story, but I don't find that amount necessary for any use. It's not the surefire cure for insomnia that Ambien is, but it is quite useful. The highest recommended dose is 76 milligrams, which has failed to put me to sleep on multiple occasions. The average dose I use to put myself to sleep is 200 milligrams, but this still produces some hilarious but yet unwanted delirious effects. Diphenhydramine is the active chemical in all over-the-counter sleep aids and is probably in anything you've ever seen that says PM. It works by blocking the histamine receptor, which is responsible for awareness, awakeness, and not being delusional. For this, it is the most powerful in that class of drugs, but there also exists a few others. Before I discovered diphenhydramine, I was prescribed hydroxyzine, which works in the same way. Even though it's prescription, I found that it's a lot less powerful and has never once helped me get to sleep. Trazodone's a serotonergic antidepressant that's prescribed more for insomnia than it is for depression. Serotonin is a chemical known for stimulation, but its serotonin effect is weak. Its sedative effect comes from the fact that it's a histamine blocker, and I've taken the recommended dose and personally I don't feel it. One other histamine blocker that makes its way into the over-counter medication. So I found some interesting information on Wikipedia about it. My box says to take one 25 milligram pill. Wikipedia recommends up to 50 milligrams. Wikipedia also says that the estimated lethal dose for humans is 50 to 500 milligrams. Well, I must be dancing with death because I took 2 of these bad boys and honestly, it just felt like diphenhydramine. I couldn't obtain from internet information what the lethal dose actually is. This guy on a drug forum says he takes 125 milligrams, but he cuts it down to 75 milligrams if he just wants to potentiate opiates. Your tolerance to any drug is going to have to do with what class of drug and what receptors in your brain that it works with. Dopamine's the most notable chemical for stimulation. So it would make sense if you block dopamine, you get tired, right? Except dopamine's also the prime chemical responsible for happiness as well. So it's like making yourself feel like you're coming down from speed just to induce sleep, and it doesn't work every time, so basically it makes you feel like shit. They don't usually prescribe it for insomnia, they prescribe it for people with movement problems like Michael J. Fox, or people who are too hyper and manic to calm them down. People who are crazy, they have less energy to be crazy. I saw this dude walking down the street. You'd think he was crazy. He had a kink in his neck, right? He couldn't move. People around it were laughing at him. Fucking I was laughing at him. Friends were laughing at him. God was probably laughing at him. His pharmacist was probably laughing at him. And it was all probably because he was on a dopamine suppressor or a medication. We don't know, you know, if we're going to feed it to someone, people have weird reactions, so he couldn't move because of it. Chemical warfare can rule the earth. You could just take a dopamine blocker, drop it in your friend's drink, watch him drink it, slip into depression, blow his brains out, and you will see that drugs rule the world. The man with the drugs rules the world. So I got a 7-day free trial of Rosarum. You know the one Abraham Lincoln and the Beaver tell you to buy? So it's the first and only drug to bind to the melatonin receptor. Unlike melatonin supplements, which physically are melatonin, which there's some question whether they're absorbed into the brain at all. So I took one, and it almost put me to sleep. Its effects are quick, like an hour, so you gotta catch sleep while it's going. I waited a couple of days and I took 4. Again, it almost put me to sleep. Even though on 3 occasions when I took it, it didn't put me to sleep, it brought me so close that I know it's an effective sleep aid. Since it's its own class of drugs, it wouldn't have a cross-tolerance with any other sleep meds. And since it's not unpleasant like histamine blockers, it would be my first choice to alternate to from Ambien. The only reason it wouldn't work for today's insomniac is because it's too expensive. It's new, so it'll be 10 years before generic brands can make it. Also, the dose they said is too low. I had to take 6 of them and it didn't even put me to sleep, and there's no way I'd have a tolerance to a drug that binds to the melatonin receptor, because that's the only one. So they gotta ramp up the dose if they want to fucking gunk out us insomniacs, eh? A lot of sedatives don't work on me. Weed doesn't put me to sleep, opiates give me hyper energy, and Neurontin gives me hyper energy, although if I go above my regular 1200 milligram dose, it does make me dizzy and sleepy, but I wouldn't want to use it as a sleep aid because it's got an acid-like tolerance, like LSD. Funny thing is, Neurontin is an acid, so I'd rather use it as an energy pill than a sleeping pill. Lunesta, huh? According to this ad, Lunesta will blow my fucking mind. I know I already covered GABAergic drugs, but I got to talk about the most popular ones because people want to know. So I got a 7-day free trial of Lunesta on a day that I hadn't taken GABA drugs in a week, shown in the diagram here. GABA drugs tolerance fade quick, so after a week I shouldn't have had any tolerance to it, but yet I took one and had no effect from it. After reading in reputable medical texts that Lunesta isn't fatal unless mixed, I waited a few days and then took 6 of them. I lay in bed for about an hour, but yet I felt no GABA effect, so I got up and I said, fuck this, I took a few bong hits, and then I went to go feast. I just bought a bunch of fresh food and I was surprised that it all tastes like metal. I was hungry as shit, so I kept eating it, but I was wondering why the store sold me this crapified food. Later I looked it up and the first side effect is an unpleasant metal taste. Too bad its first side effect wasn't to put me to sleep. Lunesta didn't just not work for me. My pharmacist says everyone prefers Ambien over Lunesta, so it gets universal thumbs down. So out of all the drugs in the sleep medication library, I find alternating between these easily obtainable drugs to work the best for me. Thank God the tolerance on Ambien drops pretty quick. It's not perfect, it is a little bit harder to fall asleep on the diphenhydramine night, but this is the best you're going to be able to do. It would make sense to occasionally substitute these drugs with similar ones to keep tolerance down. Or you could, if you want, have a more colorful sleep aid schedule, which could lead up to K-Hole Friday. Personally, that's the schedule I choose. Well, that covers all sleep aids designed by chemists except for Sonata. I heard that one's for dorks though, and it's just a GABA drug anyways. But stay tuned for part 2 when I test with natural sleep aids. Which one's better, Ambien or Provigil? Well, Ambien has vitamin E and Dead Sea minerals, but Provigil comes with an antibacterial. Well, I think Ambien's better. But I don't think either one of them will bring my dead kitty back to life. Ah! Ah! No! Ah! Cognitive function.
Why the fuck am I not purple?